Congressman Will Hurd. He's from Texas. He's a key member of the House Homeland Security Committee. Also, in his earlier career, spent 9 years as a clandestine officer in the CIA. Congressman, are you confident that everything is being done right now to prevent what happened in Paris from happening in a major city in the United States?
You know, Wolf, I am confident. You know, one of the things, if you would have asked me when I was in the CIA, I was in the CIA when 9/11 happened, and if you would have told me that it would have been 14 years before another attack on our homeland, I would have said you were crazy. And the reason there hasn't been one is because of the men and women in our intelligence services, our law enforcement community, and in the military that are still operating as if it's September 12th, 2001. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be getting all the information that the French are sharing with us, going back to the records, looking if there's any new indicators that they can use to look at some old cases. So these men and women that are working hard every day to keep us safe, this is priority number one for them.
Certainly is. Mike Morrell, the former deputy director of the CIA, said the current ISIS strategy, the overall ISIS strategy, is not working. I want you to listen to something he said. Listen to this.
I do think the question of whether President Assad needs to go or whether he is part of the solution here, we need to look at again. You know, clearly he's part of the problem, but he may also be part of the solution.
I guess he's referring to the fact that President Assad in Damascus, he's fighting ISIS as well. ISIS is going after his regime. It's a brutal regime. How should President Obama and the U.S. military deal with this real basic problem in Syria? You want to kill ISIS, but at the same time you want to go after Assad. What's worse?
Well, ISIS is worse, but Assad's pretty bad as well. I don't think you can have any political solution in that region that includes Bashar al Assad. Bashar al Assad has killed millions of his own people, you know, and part of the reason that you have things destabilized in this region, which helped with the growth of ISIS.
What do you think of this new manhunt that started in the last hour or two in France right now, Congressman? They're going after suspected terrorists in major cities across the country. Clearly, a lot of these suspects who may be picked up had nothing to do with what happened in Paris, but they may be involved in other plots.
That's likely, or, you know, after a review over the last couple of days of information, finding the identities of these attackers, they've been able to piece together further information. So this is a good sign that there's leads to up on. This is important, and sharing of information is incredibly important. One of the things I set on the task force looking at ISIS in the United States, and one of the things that we found was the level of communicating and information sharing with some of our European partners was nowhere near to the level it should have been. You know, we've been sharing tens of thousands of names of known bad guys to our European partners, and many of our European partners wasn't using that information to check against known travelers. This is something very basic. This should be happening immediately, and I think with what you saw happen on Friday, this is going to make sure that all of our European partners are doing everything they can.
One big problem, and the FBI director himself has spoken to me about it, James Comey, is the fact that these terrorists are now getting more sophisticated in their communication, and they have these so-called encrypted apps in which the U.S. and other intelligence services really can't monitor what they're saying to each other. How big of a problem is this from your perspective?
Well, this going dark phenomenon is something that I've been involved in a number of conversations on. In order for someone to go dark, you got to know who they are. You probably have a phone number or know they use a certain headsets. And so there's a lot of information that you can glean from these bad guys, not knowing the plain text that they may be exchanging. And if they have a certain level of sophistication, even within that plain text, they're not going to be saying the attack is at this time at this location. But this is something that we need to continue to focus on. We can work with some of these companies to make sure that we're getting all the information that we can. The other good thing about when you have some of these bad guys using encrypted services or social media, that means we get better access to them. You know, when I was chasing Al-Qaeda in Pakistan and Afghanistan, you know, if you were an American and got anywhere close to Al-Qaeda, you were going to get your head cut off. Now with ISIS, they're looking for stuff like that, which gives us an opportunity to seed folks into these organizations in order to gather intelligence that we can get back to our military planners and stop things from happening all across the world.
Congressman Will Hurd of Texas, member of the House Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir, and thanks for highlighting this important topic.
It's very important. The whole world, as I say, has been watching what's going on, and they will continue to watch because it's a critically important issue.